Victory over others may bring glory, but victory over oneself, that is the highest triumph. In a world where people search endlessly for power, wealth, and approval, the true battlefield lies not outside but within. It is here, in the quiet spaces of the mind, where thoughts arise and dissolve, where impulses take root, that the most decisive battle of all is fought. This is not a war of violence. This is the war of awakening, of meeting the self, not with weapons, but with insight, not with domination, but with understanding. You may conquer 10,000 men in battle, but if you have not conquered your own craving, your own anger, your own delusion, you remain enslaved. And what is it to be enslaved? It is to be tossed around by every emotion, every desire, every passing shadow of thought, believing it all to be real and permanent. Yet the Buddha taught all things are impermanent, all things are without a fixed self, and all things are sources of suffering when clung to. And so we begin, not by looking outward for someone to blame, but by turning inward toward the root of our dissatisfaction. The Buddha did not offer salvation in the heavens, nor in the hands of another. He pointed to the human condition itself and said, "Come and see." He called on us to observe, to know, to understand, not just with intellect, but with direct, mindful experience. This is the beginning of true wisdom. To know that suffering exists, to see its cause in our own clinging and aversion, to glimpse the possibility of release, and to walk the path that leads there, not someday but now. For what is the mind but a field of seeds? Plant anger, and you harvest resentment. Plant fear, and you reap paralysis. But plant mindfulness, and you grow clarity. Plant compassion, and you harvest peace. This is not poetry, this is reality, observed by those who truly look. The teachings of the Buddha are not a matter of belief. They are a matter of awakening. And to awaken, one must look clearly, with no veil, no filter, no agenda. One must be willing to see what is. So we begin with thought, because from thought all things flow. Every word, every action, every emotion, it all begins with a seed in the mind. Most people live as prisoners of their thoughts, unaware that they are even in chains. They chase after every mental impulse as if each one held truth, but not all thoughts are wise. Not all thoughts are kind. Not all thoughts lead to peace. Therefore, the first victory is awareness. To know that a thought is a thought, not reality, not commandment, not prophecy, just a passing cloud in the sky of the mind. You are not your thoughts, you are the one who sees them. When anger rises, do not say, "I am angry." Say instead, "Anger is present." When fear trembles the heart, do not say, "I am afraid." Say, "Fear is visiting." In this simple shift of language lies profound liberation, because the moment you observe the mind, you are no longer trapped in it. You become the witness, and the witness is free. But this is not easy. The mind has habits, grooves carved deep by years of unconscious living. The habit to judge, to compare, to cling, to resist. These are not flaws, they are simply the result of not knowing. And the antidote to not knowing is to begin knowing, to sit quietly, to watch the breath, to feel the body, to allow each moment to unfold without pushing or pulling. This is meditation, not escape, but deep engagement. Not rejection of the world, but a more intimate meeting with it. Through meditation, we begin to see the nature of mind, and what we find may surprise us. Underneath the noise, the confusion, the self-doubt, there is a vast stillness. A clarity that does not come from effort, but from letting go, from ceasing to interfere. This stillness is not lifeless. It is the ground of all vitality. It is where true intention arises, not from ego, but from awareness. And with this awareness, we can begin to guide the mind, not with force, but with wisdom. The Buddha likened the mind to a wild elephant. Untrained, it tramples everything. But with patience and kindness, it can become a powerful ally. And so, we train the mind, not to suppress, but to understand, not to eliminate desire, but to see its root, to see whether it leads to suffering or to freedom. And in this training, belief becomes less about dogma and more about direction. True belief is not blind. It is confidence grounded in direct experience. When you touch the fire and feel the heat, you do not need someone to convince you it burns. In the same way, when you touch stillness, when you taste compassion, when you experience letting go, you begin to trust the path. You do not believe because you are told. You believe because you know, because you see for yourself. This seeing is called right view. And it is not a philosophy, it is a way of being, a way of perceiving the world through the lens of impermanence, interdependence, and non-self. It means looking at each moment and asking, is this lasting? Is this mine? Is this who I truly am? And when the answer is no, we begin to release. We begin to relax our grip. But this is not passive resignation. This is the beginning of true power. Because when you no longer need things to be permanent or perfect, you are free to live fully. You are no longer a slave to conditions. You are no longer bargaining with the universe to give you what you want. You are present, you are open, you are grounded. From this ground, vision arises. Not just a vision for your own life, but a vision for all beings. The Buddha did not wake up just for himself. He awakened for the benefit of all. And this is the heart of the teaching, that your liberation is not separate from the liberation of others, that your peace is not isolated, but interconnected. To walk the path is not to climb to some mountaintop alone. It is to walk through the world with eyes open and heart available, to meet suffering with compassion, to meet joy with gratitude, to meet confusion with patience. And in this way, we begin to live not just as seekers of truth, but as expressions of it. Each word, each gesture, each choice becomes a reflection of our understanding. And slowly, the outer life begins to mirror the inner. Harmony replaces conflict. Generosity replaces greed. Stillness replaces restlessness. But this takes discipline. Not rigid control, but gentle, consistent practice. Discipline is not punishment. It is devotion. It is the daily return to presence, again and again. Even when it is hard, especially when it is hard, because the moment you stop practicing, the old habits return. The mind forgets. The ego resumes its throne. And so we return. We breathe. We sit. We observe. We forgive ourselves. And begin again. This is the quiet heroism of the path, not in grand gestures, but in the willingness to return, to keep choosing clarity over confusion, presence over distraction, kindness over reaction. And from this wellspring of discipline flows action, conscious, deliberate, and wise. Action that is no longer reactive but responsive, no longer driven by fear or desire, but guided by understanding. The Buddha taught that karma is not fate. It is not some cosmic tally of right and wrong. Karma is action, and every action leaves a trace. Every thought, every word, every deed. These are seeds planted in the soil of becoming. So ask yourself, what am I planting today? What harvest will I reap tomorrow? The untrained mind acts out of habit, defending the ego, chasing pleasure, avoiding pain. But the awakened heart acts with intention. It acts with care. with discernment, with a deep sense of responsibility, not out of guilt, but out of love. Love for oneself, love for others, love for the shared experience of being alive. Right action is not a rigid code. It is the natural expression of wisdom. When the mind is clear, when the heart is open, right action follows effortlessly, like water flowing downhill. And this is the paradox. We must train ourselves to act effortlessly. We must cultivate the conditions in which goodness arises naturally. And among these conditions is gratitude. Gratitude is not merely saying thank you. It is a radical way of seeing, a way of meeting each moment as a gift. Not because it is always pleasant, but because it is always an opportunity. An opportunity to grow, to learn, to love, When we live in gratitude, we stop waiting for life to give us what we think we deserve. We stop measuring moments against our expectations. We start meeting life as it is. With open arms, we stop complaining about the rain and start dancing in it. Even suffering can become an invitation. An invitation to look deeper, to soften, to expand. Gratitude does not deny pain, it transforms our relationship to it. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? We ask, what is this teaching me? And in that shift, everything changes. Gratitude opens the heart. It disarms the ego. It dissolves resentment. It turns even the smallest act, a breath, a smile, a shared silence, into a miracle. It reminds us that nothing is owed to us, and yet everything is given. But to sustain this vision, we must also learn to adapt. Because life will not always unfold according to our plans. People will leave, health will change, dreams will die. And when they do, will we break, or will we bend? Adaptability is the wisdom of impermanence in motion. It is the ability to let go, not just of things, but of identities, expectations, and narratives. The Buddha said, let go and be free. But letting go does not mean giving up. It means loosening the grip. It means allowing life to move, to shift, to... The river does not resist the rock. It flows around it, and in time, it shapes even the hardest stone. We, too, must learn to flow, not aimlessly, but with presence, not passively, but with purpose. Adaptability is not weakness, it is strength. It is the strength to change without losing your center, to move without forgetting your path, to evolve without abandoning your values. And this is the key, to remain rooted in the Dharma while dancing with the world, to hold firm to compassion, mindfulness, and clarity, even as everything around you shifts. Because the one who adapts with awareness is unshakable, like a tree whose roots run deep. Even the fiercest winds cannot uproot it. And when we bend without breaking, we begin to discover something extraordinary: resilience. Resilience is not toughness. It is not about hiding your pain or denying your wounds. It is about touching your pain and choosing to remain open. It is about being cracked by life and still choosing to love, still choosing to show up. The Buddha never promised a life without suffering. He promised a way to meet suffering with wisdom. And resilience is that way. It is the fire that forges gold, the pressure that forms diamonds, the dark soil from which lotus flowers bloom. You may fall 1,000 times, but each time you rise with greater understanding. Each time you return to the path, you return with deeper humility, deeper compassion. And in this way, your very wounds become sacred. They are no longer signs of failure. They are the fingerprints of growth. And as you walk this path, not perfectly but sincerely, you begin to embody the teachings. You no longer talk about compassion. You are compassion. You no longer recite teachings. you live them. You become a lamp, not just for yourself, but for others. And yet, there is still more. Because the path does not end with resilience. It continues into learning, lifelong, moment-to-moment learning. The mind that believes it has arrived has already begun to stagnate. But the mind that remains curious, that continues to ask, to explore, to inquire, that mind is forever young, forever open. The Buddha himself said, "Be a light unto yourselves, not obey blindly, but see clearly." And to see clearly, we must always be learning, unlearning what no longer serves, and relearning what brings us back to truth. This is not just academic learning. It is experiential. It is the wisdom that comes from falling down, from listening deeply, from sitting silently and watching the breath. It is the learning that arises when we dare to question the stories we've inherited about who we are, about what we need, about what really matters. And what do we discover in the end? That nothing outside us can make us whole. That no amount of praise, possession, or power can grant lasting peace. That the true temple is within. And that the final victory is not over the world, but over the illusion of the self. This is not a denial of life. It is the embrace of its deepest essence. The self we cling to is not solid. It is a process, a flux, a dance of conditions. And when we stop trying to fix it in place, we begin to move freely, lovingly, wisely. This is the dance of liberation. Not stiff, not serious, but joyous. Light-hearted, yet grounded. Deep, yet simple. And when we live from this place, every moment becomes sacred. Every breath becomes a prayer. Every encounter, a chance to awake. And so we return again, not to where we began, but to the source of all becoming, intention. For what is a life but a long unfolding of intention, moment by moment, thought by thought, choice by choice. Most drift through this stream unaware, pulled by currents they cannot name, but those who awaken plant their feet in the riverbed and begin to walk with purpose. Not purpose as the world defines it, not ambition, not accumulation, not titles or applause, but purpose as the Buddha revealed it, the ending of suffering, the deep sacred commitment to clarity, to compassion, to freedom, not just for oneself, but for all beings. This purpose is not bound to form. Whether you teach or heal, build or raise, protest or paint, it matters less what you do than how you do it. Do you act with presence, with care, with non-attachment? Do you walk the eightfold path not as a ritual, but as a living reality? Right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, right view. These are not rules to memorize, they are pathways to embody. Together they shape a life of profound coherence, where the inner and the outer are no longer in conflict. Such a life does not scream, it shines. Not with the blinding light of ego, but with the soft glow of integrity. It is a light that nourishes, that calms, that invites. And others, seeing it, feel drawn not to worship, but to remember who they are beneath the masks, to remember the stillness that has always lived beneath the noise, to remember that peace is not found in things, but in presence, that love is not taken, but given, that freedom is not earned, but realized. And what allows this remembering? Silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of fullness. The silence where truth arises, not as a shout, but as a whisper that says, "You are enough. You are already home. There is nothing to fix, only to see." But to hear this whisper, we must slow down. We must dare to stop running. We must sit, and feel, and let the dust of the world settle. Only then does the reflection become clear. Only then does the mind, like a still pond, reveal its depth. It is in this depth that we meet ourselves, not as a name or story, but as awareness itself. We see the body rise and fall, the breath come and go, the thoughts flicker like fireflies in the night, and yet something remains. Something vast, spacious, untouched. This is not a thing. It is not an object of thought. It is the ground of all experience, the knowing that knows all things, the awareness that was never born and never dies. Some call it Buddha nature, others call it emptiness. But it is not a concept, it is a direct experience, available to all who look deeply. And from this knowing, a new kind of life emerges. A life not driven by fear, but guided by trust. Not ruled by craving, but sustained by contentment. Not fragmented, but whole. You begin to listen more and speak less. You begin to serve more and seek less. You begin to love, not because others deserve it, but because love is your nature. You begin to bow, not out of submission, but out of reverence for the sacredness of all things. Even your own pain becomes sacred. You hold it tenderly, like a child crying in the night. You no longer push it away. You no longer pretend it's not there. You sit with it, breathe with it, make room for it. And in that gentle space, it begins to soften, to open, to teach. And what it teaches is this: there is no separation. Your joy is not separate from another's. Your healing is not separate from the world's. When you free yourself from hatred, you free others. When you forgive, you create a field of peace around you. When you awaken, you light the path for countless unseen travelers. This is the unseen web of interbeing. The deep truth the Buddha saw beneath the surface of all things, that no self exists in isolation, that no act is insignificant, that your every breath contributes to the vast symphony of becoming. So live as if it matters, because it does. Live as if each step imprints the earth with presence. Live as if each glance holds the power to heal. Live as if each moment is your teacher, because it is. There is no later when it comes to awakening. No perfect moment, no better time. There is only now, only this. Only the breath rising and falling. Only the heart, softening or hardening. Only awareness, remembering or forgetting. And so, you keep coming back, not with judgment, but with love. You fall, you rise. You wander, you return. Over and over, like waves on the shore. Each return is a homecoming. Each breath, a beginning. You may not always feel strong. That's okay. Strength is not about never falling. It's about how gently you rise, how patiently you forgive, how honestly you face yourself. And in that honesty, there is power. Not the power to control, but the power to be free. Free from the stories. Free from the masks. Free from the endless striving for what you already are. You do not need to become anything. You need only to see clearly. To see that what you have been searching for is already here, already present, already whole. This is the final illusion, that enlightenment is somewhere else, someone else, some other time. No. It is here. It is you. Not the you imagine. Not the role or identity, but the still, quiet knowing beneath it all. The presence that witnesses, the silence that loves. The silence that loves, that is your true nature. Not separate from the world, but beating within it. Not cut off from others, but pulsing with the same breath. The same awareness, the same capacity for awakening. To realize this is to taste the nectar of the Dharma, not from a book or a voice, but from the living well of your own heart. And with this realization, fear begins to dissolve. Not because life becomes easy, but because it becomes honest. Suffering no longer frightens you. Death no longer terrifies you. Change no longer shakes you, because you have seen what does not change. You have touched the unborn, the undying, the unconditioned. Call it emptiness, call it peace, call it truth. The name does not matter. What matters is the knowing, the quiet certainty that comes not from belief, but from direct experience. This is what the Buddha offered, not promises, but a path, not salvation, but liberation. And this liberation is available to you now, not after years of striving, not in another life, but here, in the simplicity of this breath, in the stillness between thoughts, in the compassionate gaze you offer a stranger, in the choice to respond with patience instead of anger. You may have failed 1,000 times. You may carry wounds so deep they ache in silence. Still, the path welcomes you. Still, the present moment opens its arms. Still, the Dharma whispers, begin again. And when you do, when you rise from the ashes of your own suffering with gentleness and resolve, you become a warrior of peace, a lighthouse in the storm. Not perfect, but present. Not flawless, but fearless. This is the true victory. Not over others, not over the world, but over the self. The false self, the grasping self, the fearful self. The self that clings and resists and forgets its true nature. When you see through this illusion, when you pierce the veil of separation, when you meet each moment with full presence, you win the greatest battle of all. Victory over self is the ultimate triumph. It does not look like conquest. It looks like humility. It looks like patience in the face of insult, stillness in the presence of chaos, compassion in the midst of cruelty. It looks like choosing love, again and again and again. This victory cannot be taken. It cannot be broken. It leaves no trace of arrogance, only a gentle radiance that uplifts all it touches. The Buddha's smile was not the smile of someone who won a war. It was the smile of someone who needed no war to begin with. And you too can smile in this way. Not because all your problems are solved, but because you've stopped identifying with them. Because you've remembered what is deeper than all problems, this open, aware, ever-awake heart. So walk the path, not someday, but now. Let your breath be your guide. Let your body be your temple. Let your mind be your mirror. Let your heart be your teacher. And in every step, remember, the greatest journey is the one that returns you to yourself. Not the self of roles and stories, but the self that is no self. The vast awareness that sees, loves, and liberates all. This is your true home. This is your true strength. This is your true victory. And when the final breath comes, may you meet it not with fear, but with peace. Not with resistance, but with gratitude. Knowing that you lived fully, loved deeply, saw clearly. That you walked the path not just in words, but in every breath, every step, every silence. And in doing so, you became not just a follower of the Buddha, but the Buddha within. Let the world go on chasing shadows. You have touched the light, and the light is you.